Hi everyone, welcome to our third month of Kimberbell's Digital Dealer Exclusives. We are into March. I cannot believe it. Time has gone by so fast and I'm ready for warmer weather. I don't know about you, but I definitely am. And this month gives me a little bit of hope with that, with our spring is in the air little pennant banner. I am going to take you step by step of how to put this together, do all the embroidery, give you some tips and tricks, and then also how to make it into from a tote to a little pennant banner. So let's go. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started and go over what's in your kit. You should have received a piece of stabilizer. It's going to be sticky back tearaway. I will say that the pattern calls for sticky back wash away, but you can use tearaway at the, interchangeably. So it's all good. We gave you a piece of sticky back tearaway. You should have one Kimberbell canvas tote blank. Okay. You should have a piece of piece of purple glitter sheet, okay? And I had already cut these down into what sizes I need, but you'll receive a bigger piece. You should have a piece of yellow fabric, okay? And I'm gonna use some Shape Flex SF101 on the back, so I'm gonna make sure to prep that. And then you should also have some Kimberbell embroidery felt, the mint color, okay? So that's all that comes in your kit. You should have received the design from your Kimberbell account, and in that folder there are the PDF instructions that you can print off. So I always like to have these printed off and by me. Even though I have done lots of Kimberbell projects, it's always nice to have this by me and make sure that I catch every step, because sometimes I can get a little too confident and miss something. So print off the instructions, have them right by you, so then you can make sure you do everything right, okay? So for this design, we're doing the 5x7 design. And so you should have a 5x7 hoop, or it says in here, Kimberbell on page 4, it talks about the 5x7 design, and it tells you what the embroidery field is. So for those of you who have Berninas, you need at least 125.2 by 142.9 millimeters. Okay, so you want to make sure you have the right hoop size for this, and we're doing the 5x7 design. That's what is included in your kit. But Kimberbell has done a bonus size of 8x12 for those of you with the larger hoops. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started by going to page 5. It says it's a 3-part project. Part 1 is centering the tote. Part 2 is embroidering the design. Then there's part 3A, which we're going to sew the pennant banner together, okay? Part 3B is for those of you who may do this again and do an 8x12 size. So they've highlighted it there. So we are only going to focus on part 1, part 2, and part 3A. All right? Okay. So let's go ahead and start with part 1, which is centering the tote. We are going to take our sticky back tearaway. Once again, it says wash away, but we're using tearaway, and that's okay. And we're going to hoop this, okay? And I have a little trick for you. You're welcome to try this out if you'd like. I have a little bit easier way of hooping this. It's not very traditional of how you hoop it, but it gets the job done, and it's actually a lot easier to hoop. So first I'll go over the traditional way of how to do this and what Kimberbell suggests. So you're going to take your hoop and unscrew the top out. Okay, so this pops out. You'll take your piece of stabilizer, put it right on top, and then you're going to take your top part of the hoop and hoop it this way. And this is where it gets a little bit tricky. Just be patient. And if you need to unscrew your hoop a little bit more, that's okay. All right? And you're going to put that together. Okay. So I have my stabilizer hooped there. Now the traditional way is you will score it. Careful not to go through the stabilizer, and you'll pick up the top piece of the paper to reveal the sticky adhesive, okay? And Kimberbell has instructions for all of that. But this class is also, or this series is also going to teach you some new techniques and tricks and tips. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you how I hoop sticky back stabilizer, okay? Try this if you want. Let me know how you like it, okay? So once again, I'm going to unscrew the top from the bottom. I'm going to place it back in, okay? Make sure it's tight. Careful not to do it too tight or you'll strip the screw, okay? Now you're going to take your piece of sticky back stabilizer and you're going to peel off the entire piece of paper on top. So I've got my paper here. You can throw that away. And now I've revealed the entire piece of the sticky adhesive, okay? Now I'm going to place this right side up so the sticky is facing up. I'm going to take my hoop and I'm careful to make sure that this part of the hoop isn't touching the sticky back stabilizer. Okay. And I'm just going to place it right on top and press. Okay. Then what you're going to do is you're just going to fold the corners in. It's not a very pretty way of doing it, and you can even cut this down if you need to. I could even cut this down if I want to. Okay. Again, it's not very pretty, but it actually is a lot easier because sometimes I've found with sticky back stabilizer is it pops out of the hoop because it's so thick and the paper makes it slide. Okay, so there you have it. Same kind of thing of hooping it, revealing the sticky adhesive, but not as pretty, but is actually a lot easier. And I always get the question asked after you take it off, does it leave a sticky residue? Most of the time it doesn't. If I do it multiple times in a row, there might be a little bit of stickiness, but you can just take a wet wipe or a wet paper towel and it will just come right off, okay? All right, so there we go. We have that hooped per se, okay? All right. So we are on, okay, so we did part 1, step 1, 2, and 3. And let me explain a little bit about the Kimberbell instructions. Well, throughout this video, I will be referencing a couple different things, and I'm just going to explain now what those mean. So when I say, for example, let's see. All right. For example, on page 6, and then step 4 so part 2, step 4, you're going to see a little icon here that has a machine and then a number. Okay, that is machine step 1, but instruction step 4. Okay, there are steps on your machine that you're going to follow, but they aren't going to be the same steps or numbers as your instructions, because if you see here, step 1 is putting the fusible backing on the yellow fabrics and removing, and then step 2 is removing the plastic from the glitter sheets. Well, those aren't what you do on the machine, you just do that at your workstation. However, when you bring in the design, the first step of the design is the leaves. And so I'm going to be referring to instruction step 4, machine step 1, okay? Or instruction step 5, machine step 2, okay? So you'll hear that a lot throughout the video. Okay, so we are on instruction step 4 of part 1, centering the tote. And it says, load the centering crosshairs embroidery file into the machine. And this is in the same folder as where you'll find your design, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and load that into the machine. And on instruction step 5, machine step 1, it says stitch the centering crosshairs directly on top of the stabilizer, okay? So we're gonna go ahead and go to the machine and stitch it directly on the stabilizer. So go ahead and just set this aside for right now. I'm gonna bring over my wool mat and my tote, and make sure you have your iron ready to go, okay? And we're on instruction step 6, okay? So we're gonna do exactly what it says. We're going to fold the tote in half. Okay, so I'm going to open this up. Okay. Going to open this up, and I'm going to fold the tote in half lengthwise, right sides together. So this is the wrong side up. I'm going to turn this over, fold it in half, right sides together. And it says aligning handles and edges. So that's good. I've got my edges here. And I'm gonna give it a good press. It says finger press, but I like to make sure there's a nice press, okay? Okay, all right, we're gonna go on to the next page. All right, this is where we are going to measure. We're going to measure down from the top of the tote as indicated in the chart below. So we are doing the 5 by 7, so we need to go 4.5 inches down, okay? If you're doing 8 by 12, there's a different measurement, but with the kit that you received, you are doing the 5 by 7, okay? So we are going to measure down from the top of the tote, 4.5 inches down, okay? And we're just going to put a little pin right there. Okay, 4.5 inches down. Okay, so it says on instruction step 8, keeping lengthwise, fold aligned, fold the tote down at the pinned point. Okay, so I'm going to fold it down right where I put that pin, right here. and it says remove pin. And I'm going to give this a good press. All right. Okay. So now we're going to grab our hoop. Okay. And we are going to open this up. Well, let's see. I'm going to make sure I read my instructions here. Okay, let me go back just a second. Notice here on step 7, it says fold A on the left, and I had it on the right, so I need to flip this over, and I'm going to flip this down again. And it's okay because you've already pressed it, so you know exactly where to fold it again. Okay? Not a big deal. You want to make sure fold A is on the left side, and then this is going to be fold B. Fold A, fold B. I had it flipped, which is fine. We're just going to flip it back over, follow Kimberbell instructions here, and make sure there's the 2 folds here and the top fold here. All right, so we have our fold A and fold B. We'll go ahead and grab our hoop with the stabilizer. And on instruction step 9, it wants you to put fold A on the bottom half of the vertical crosshair and fold B on the right hand side of the horizontal crosshair, okay? So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to line that up both ways, and then I'm just going to slowly open this up and press, and then I'm going to continue to open it up and press. Okay? And make sure that it is as smooth as possible so it reduces puckering. Okay? And there we go. Okay? We now have our hoop and our project ready to go. Okay? So something that I like to do is I like to roll this other end up so then it gets out of the way, and I'll just take some pins, or if you have some binding clips, those work great too. Okay, pin there and pin here. Great. There we go. Okay, we're now on to part 2, which is the most fun part of it all, is embroidering the design. Okay, so let's go ahead and just put this to the side for right now. We need to remember to take off the plastic topping on these. You don't want to sew through these, okay? So they're really stiff right now, but when you take the plastic off, I'll show you here, it becomes really flimsy, which is good. You want it to have, to feel more like a piece of fabric, okay? So took that one off. And we'll do this one. I better do it now before I forget, right? Okay, there we go. And then this is optional. You don't have to do this. I like to do it with my lighter fabrics, as putting something like SF101, which is a shape flex. I know Kimberbell has their own fusible backing. So this is ironed onto the wrong side of the fabric. It gives it more stability, and you won't be able to see other fabrics underneath this light fabric. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and press that. Okay. All right. And then I'm gonna cut this in half because I'm gonna need 2 separate pieces. Okay, so you can just kind of eyeball it. Doesn't need to be exact, because Kimberbell gives you plenty of fabric, extra fabric to be able to cut around the applique designs, okay? So I've got my piece of yellow fabric with the fusible backing on the back, and I have my glitter sheets with the plastic topping off. And you know what, actually save these, don't throw them away quite yet. I'm going to show you how you can use these a little later, okay? So just put those to the side. And then I've got my felt. Now, this is just the most fun part, is because you get to play a lot with thread and color, do your own little designing with different colors throughout the thing. You do what you feel like would be creative and cute, okay? So, just for the video, I'm going to follow what this says, but you're more than welcome to mix it up. Okay, so we are on instruction step 4 and machine step 1, and it wants us to stitch the leaves. Okay, and it has a dark green icon. The icons below are the thread colors that they used. Again, you can mix it up and do it your own. Make it your own, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and take my hoop and my project over to the machine, and I'm going to change my thread to a dark green, okay? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and remove the tape. Oh, and I see that it caught in the stitch a little bit. That's okay. I can just grab it, comes right out. And I like to keep my paper tape because it still has enough stick to it that I can use it throughout the project. Okay. And now we could trim around this really closely. I have a little trick for you though. Where it went around twice and really reinforced that stitch, it now has perforated the glitter enough that if you pull from one corner and you start to tear it away, it's going to tear up to that line. And you want to be gentle with the tearing. You don't want to yank it and have it pull some of the thread. But look at that. It's a nice, clean cut there. Isn't that purple glitter just super fun? All right, so you're welcome to trim it, but however, here's a little trick for you. Okay. And I only do this when it has gone around multiple times. If it does just one stitch around in the design, I don't want to risk pulling it. And I have some stray thread, so I'm going to use my Kimberbell scissors set and use my little flexi snips here. Really sharp and easy to use. And just trim some of this around. Okay. Now, remember how I said keep these little plastic sheets? these are gonna act as your pressing cloth, okay? They're heat resistant, so what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna place it right over top of that because we need to iron these in place, okay? And you wanna use an iron that can fit in your hoop. Okay, just give it a good press. Okay, that seems to be hot enough. So then you can just remove these, and now your glitter is set. Pretty fun. So you definitely want to trim before you set it, or else this whole piece would iron to your project, and it's really hard to get off. Okay, so there we go. We're moving right along. Okay, now it's gonna want us to do a couple more stitches of decorative stitches. So go ahead and do machine step or instruction step 12, machine step 6, which is the tulips decorative outline. And then it's going to do another detail stitch of the berries and the tulip details. Okay, so go ahead and do those two, and then we're gonna keep going with some of our applique. Okay, so we just finished doing the tack down, and I went ahead and trimmed this one, and now I'm going to show you how to trim the other flower. So I'm going to be using my Kimberbell Flexi Snips because they're really sharp all the way to the point, and I can get into those tight corners. So I'm just going to go around here, and you want to trim it as close as you can to the stitch line, but don't cut the stitches. All right, so we'll just go around here. Okay, we have that all trimmed up. We are on instruction step 18. We just did 17. We're on instruction step 18, and it says stitch the daisy's decorative outline. So we're going to go ahead and go to the machine, and it's going to do the decorative stitch around the flowers. Make sure your handles are out of the way. Nice clear spot, and let's go ahead and stitch that decorative line. Okay, so we're now done with the yellow thread for the decorative outline of the daisy. Now we are on instruction step 19, machine step 11, and it wants us to stitch the daisy centers and details. So there's a little orange icon for me to change my thread, so I'm going to go ahead and change it to orange. Okay, thread the needle. Okay, and I am ready to do that center detail stitch. we just finished instruction step 19, machine step 11. Now we are going to go ahead and do instruction step 20 and 21 because we aren't going to change our thread. We're going to do the same color. However, if you would like to do a different color for either one of these, you can switch your threads. But in the instructions, it just says to keep the red thread. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch the daisy detail stitches, and then the words is in the air, okay? So let's go ahead and do that. We've now finished the words is in the air. I'm just gonna give you an up close look. How cute is that? Super fun. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and stick it back into the machine because we are now going to work on the banner at the top of the project. So we are on instruction step 22, machine step 14, and it says to stitch the banner placement line. Now this is a time where I will look ahead and see that there is a teal color box for the thread that I want to use for this. And I'm just going to go ahead and change that thread right now, so then I don't have to change it as often, okay? So we're going to do the placement line. We're going to put our felt right onto our on our hoop, making sure that we cover that placement line. And then we're going to do the tack down line. And then after that, we will trim, okay? So I'll go ahead and change my thread. Okay, thread the needle, and now I'm going to do that placement line. Okay. We'll now take our piece of felt. It doesn't matter which side you face up. It's the same look on both sides. And we're gonna place it right on top, making sure to cover that placement line. Okay, and I'm just gonna take a little bit of tape and put it on either side just to hold it in place. Okay, go ahead and do the tack down line. We've now done the tack down line for the banner, and on instruction step 25, it wants us to trim the felt right up against that line. So let's go to our workstation and trim that up. Okay, I'm gonna remove the tape, probably use it for later. Okay, and we are going to trim this up right to the line. And note that it won't do a finishing outline on the felt. It's going to be raw edge, so you want to make sure it's nice and clean of a cut, okay? I like having the contrasting thread on the banner because then it just makes it stand out more. Okay. And there we go. We have our banner trimmed up. So we are on instruction step 26, machine step 16, and it wants us to stitch the word spring, okay? And then we'll go into the little butterfly after that. So let's go back to the machine and stitch out the word spring. We now have the word spring. Look how striking that looks. I love, love, love this. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to our other decorative stitches. And actually, we're going to be repeating a lot of the same things. So we are going to do the moth body. It's not a butterfly, it's a moth, excuse me. And there are going to be little stars as well. So all we're going to be doing is just changing our threads and letting the machine do the stitches. So go ahead and finish the rest of the embroidery. So we are on instruction step 27, and we'll go from 27 to 34 because all we're doing is just changing our threads. So go ahead, play around with some color and finish up the rest of the embroidery. Okay, we're done embroidering. Let's see how it turned out. Oh, so cute. It's all about the details, right? Okay, so now we're going to go over to our workstation, pull this out of the hoop, and start creating our banner, okay? All right. So we can go ahead and you can start tearing this out. Really easy way to do that when you have this, right? All right, so now we have our tote here, and we're going to put follow instructions 3A, okay, part 3A. And it wants us to fold the tote in half lengthwise, right sides together, and have the design towards the top, okay? So I've got it towards the top. I'm gonna fold it in half lengthwise, making sure that all my edges are lined up, that my handles are lined up. And it wants me to measure 9 inches down from the top of the tote, okay? And we're gonna mark it. So I'm gonna measure 9 inches down. Got a pen here. 9 inches down. Okay. Now we are going to unfold the tote and fold in half widthwise with right sides together. with the back of the design facing up. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to flip this over. The back of the design is facing up. We're going to lift this up, fold it in half, and again, the back of the design is facing up. Okay, and we're going to align the handles and edges. Okay, so I've got my handles aligned there, my edges, and I can see the mark that I just made. Okay, so we have the back of the design facing up, and it's folded in half. Now, we are going to measure, we're on instruction step 4. It says measure 1 inch out from the right edge of the tote handle and mark with a water-soluble pen. Okay, so 1 inch, let me flip this around, 1 inch from the right side of my handle. So I'm just going to mark a line right here. Okay, and then it wants us to draw a 7.5 inch vertical line down from that marked point. Okay, so I'm lining this up again, and I'm going to flip this the other way so I can make sure to measure correctly. And I'm going to end at 7.5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a vertical line all the way down to 7.5 inches. Okay, you see that there? 7.5 inches down. Now I'm going to do the exact same thing on the opposite side. I'm going to go out 1 inch this way and go 7.5 inches down. Okay, so I've got 1 inch here. And 7.5 inches down. I'm going to draw a vertical line. Okay. So now I've done that on both sides. Now we are on instruction step 6. Okay, instruction step 6. It says join bottom of drawn vertical lines to center marked point at an angle. Okay, so I am going to take my ruler again, and I am going to draw a line, because remember we have center right here. We're going to draw a line from that edge to the center. Okay, you can see how it's starting to make a little pennant. And I'm going to do that on the opposite side. So from that edge to center. Okay. Now we are going to pin our tote bag together. So just take a few pins along the side. Okay, so we did it on that one side. You're going to repeat it on the other. Okay, So we have pinned on both sides, and it wants us to stitch through both layers of the tote along these marked lines. How nice is it to have a guide? We don't have to worry about 1/4 inch. All you have to do is stitch directly on the blue line. So go ahead and stitch through both layers of this and stitch right on that line, and then we'll come back. Okay, so I'm going along and following the line, but something I really like about the Baby Lock Altair is it has this guide beam to help me line up exactly where I want to stitch. And so I can place the guide beam right on that blue line that I just drew and have that be my guide as I go along. Then I know I'm not going to eventually stray off. Okay, and there we go. Okay, we have this stitched all the way down on those lines that we drew. And now what it wants us to do is trim our bag all the way around 1/4 inch away from that stitch line. So let's go to our workstation and trim that up. All right, so I've come to my workstation and I am going to trim 1/4 inch away all the way around from this line that I just previously drew and what I just sewed. Okay, so I'm 1/4 inch. Okay, I'm going to rotate it this way. Line it up 1/4 inch. Okay, don't forget to take your pins out. You don't want to toss those. Okay. Now, we are going to flip the project right side out. Okay? And it's so nice because it already has an opening for us. Okay? I'm going to flip this right side out. Oh, I'm so excited. And you want to get those corners because we are going to do a little top stitch around. So the tool that I really like to use is the R&K turning tool. It has a blunt rounded edge at the top so it can really get into those corners and not poke through. So I'm going to go ahead and poke those corners out, and I run it along that seam line as well. Look how nice those corners are. I love it. Okay, now it wants us to go back to our sewing machine and top stitch up close at the top of the pennant. It says they recommend using a 90-14 needle just because it is thick, so we'll go ahead and do that. And we're also going to top stitch around the sides and the bottom of the pennant, and that's just really going to hold it in place and give it a nice finished look. Okay, So go ahead and top stitch all the way around, and then we will work on the handles, okay? Okay, so you're gonna sew through all the layers. Just take it easy. You can follow that previous top stitch line that was there with from the beginning. Okay, and it gets a little thick over here, so take it nice and easy. Okay, and I like to do a little reinforcement stitch. And we'll cut the threads. There we go. Okay, so we've sealed that off. And now we're going to top stitch all the way around. Okay, there we have it. We have our top stitch all the way around. Now we are going to make the handles, the little ties, okay? So let's go over to our workstation. Okay. And we are going to cut the center of each handle, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this under. So I just work with one at a time. Okay, fold it like this. And all I'm going to do is cut in the center. I'm not even going to measure. I'm just looking at it, okay? I'll do the same thing here. Okay. And cut the center there. Now what we're going to do is just hem the ends in, so you can just fold them over and just do a little top stitch on all 4 of the ties, okay? Okay, we have our banner done. So all you'll do is you can tie this in a knot and hang it from a little stand. What Kimberbell did is they put it in the yard in the garden on a little stand like that, and you just tie them on, and it's so cute. Or hang it in your home. It's just the perfect little welcoming to hopefully brighter days, right? With better weather. Okay, so there you have it. There is that spring is in the air, the March embroidery design from Kimberbell's Digital Dealer Exclusives. Thanks for watching.